Okay friends, we're going to be working on our background for our Kandinsky inspired painting artwork. So, to do a background, the supplies that you're going to need are some sort of paint. I will be using watercolor paints for this, but you could use tempera paint, acrylic paint, paints that come in like little craft bottles like this. I got this from the dollar store actually. For my son, these are the little acrylic paints. They could be any type of paint whatsoever, and of course brushes and water. Now if you don't have and you know, they could even be the cheap little brushes, or they could be the really nice big fluffy brushes, or even like a house painting brush if that's all you have, a sponge roller, or anything. If you don't have brushes, you could make brushes out of branches and leaves and things like that. Like get creative, try some different stuff, maybe some kitchen sponges, you can sponge some designs. So think about different ways of getting the paint onto the paper. You also will need some large white paper. Heavier paper the better. This paper is kind of like a nice drawing paper. It's paper from like maybe a sketchbook. So if I had even heavier paper like watercolor paper, that'd be even better, or tag board. If you don't have anything but computer paper, that should work too. Just make sure you don't get it too wet, because if you get it too wet, the thinner the paper, the more it's going to want to fall apart on you and not hold the color, which does not look very good. Now let's say you don't have any paint at all. No paint. There's a couple options. One, if you have watercolor, water-based markers, washable markers of any kind, so not permanent, we can make paint with this. And I'm going to show you how to do this. So as long as you have a brush and some water and markers, you can make some paint. I'm going to do that with you in just a minute. You also are going to want some foil too. The foil is going to be where you're going to be making the paint on. It's the surface you're going to be using. If you don't have any brushes, you could actually use a plastic bag or something to help kind of spread the paint around without getting your fingers yucky on it. If you happen to have a straw, you could use that to blow some of the paint. So there's lots of different ways you can get the paint onto the paper here. Lastly, if you don't even have washable markers, you just don't have washable markers, you don't have any, no paint at all, then the last possible option is you could use just crayons, color pencils, chalk, you know, street chalk or whatever if you don't have anything else, and you could kind of do the same thing we're going to do but with a coloring material to cover the background first. The last thing you're going to need is the link to the to a classical music choices. That is in the next slide after this video. That will again list all of the supplies that you need, and it's going to give you a link to all different types of music to listen to while you paint. The reason why we're going to be listening to music while we paint is we are going to be trying to create some of the colors and shapes we think we hear, just like Kandinsky did, based on the music. And there's lots of choices in that link that you can pick from. So we're going to get started right away. Let me start by teaching you how to make paint if you don't have watercolor paint, because obviously if you do have watercolor paint, you know how to get your paint ready. You're just going to take a brush with your water in it and dab a few drops into whatever colors you think you might use. I'm going to put some drops into like pretty much all the colors. The reason being, I don't know what colors I'm going to feel like I'm in the mood to paint with, because we're going to paint without planning too much. We're going to paint based on what we think we're hearing. And so I'm just going to make sure I get some water in all of these colors just to get them ready and going. I didn't put any in white because it's white paper. You're not really going to see the white on it, so I'm just going to set this. Now moving on how to make paint with the markers. So first you're going to want some foil nearby as your palette. So a palette is where you store your paint. So this paint comes in a palette, a container where it is stored and where you use the colors. I'm going to move this water aside so I have a little more space here. I'm going to put my foil down. This is going to be my palette, the surface where I'm going to be mixing my colors. And then you're going to take whatever colors you want. I'm going to start with a few different colors. Okay, just a few. And I'm just going to take, I would do this ahead of time just so they're ready. I'm going to take some of these colors and I'm going to put like a nice big blob of that color on the foil. Now you're going to see that it doesn't really sink in. It kind of separates and creates these little spaces because foil does not absorb marker, at least water-based markers. They're not going to sink in. They're not going to be permanent. I could wipe my finger on it and it'll come off on my fingertip. I don't want to do that right now. It's okay if it separates. Don't worry about that. So I'm just going to get some colors down. And notice that I'm giving them some space, trying to keep them separate from each other. I don't want to put them all next to each other because I don't want these colors to mix. So I'm just going to get some colors down into different spots of where I think I want them, so I have some choices for when it's time to paint, and I'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so you can't really tell how many colors I have because a lot of them have really like kind of sunk together. They kind of didn't stay flat anymore. But once you have the colors where you want them, when you're ready to paint, you just take a brush of water and then you're going to take that and put it on top of the marker, and look what's happening. Do you see how it's kind of spreading around and it's turning into paint? Isn't that amazing? So I'm taking markers and I'm turning them into paint, which is so cool and so fun. So you can use this method or you can use watercolor or any other type of paint when you're ready to paint, and you just paint with it like normal. When you run out, you just take more marker and color on top again and do more. So let's move on to how we're actually going to do this. So when you're done watching this video, you're going to click to the next slide and it's going to look like this. It's going to say what you'll need, part 1. It'll have all the lists. At the bottom here, it'll say classical music choices. You're going to click on that. I have a touch screen, but you'll click on it with your mouse. And up is going to pop up this YouTube channel that I've created, and it has all these different music options over here. So you can see all the different music options, lots and lots and lots of them. You can pick any one you want, or you can just pick the first one and kind of work your way down. So when you're ready to paint, you want to get set up first, and then when you're ready, you're going to click play on it. And some of them are really short, some are really long. So you have to kind of look at that and decide if there's certain ones you want to listen to more than others. This one down here, the Hall of the Mountain King, that's a really exciting one. So if you want to do a painting that's really exciting, that will be a fun one to listen to. If you want to do one that's a little softer and happy, makes you think of Christmas, you might want to do the Sugar Plum Fairy. So there's lots of different ones, and some of them you may have never heard of, but once you hear the music, you might recognize the sounds from maybe from some movies or some other things that you've done. Maybe if you're involved with music, you've heard some of it before. I'm just going to click this first one. I really like this one too. It's called Morning Mood. On this. And it's very soft. You might not be able to hear it from my computer, but it's very soft music that makes me think of gentle morning. So it makes me think of waking up in the morning, stretching my arms and yawning. So when I think of that, I'm thinking of bright, sunny, warm colors. So I'm going to get some of this yellow here. See, I added some water and it kind of came to life. And I'm just going to kind of start painting something that makes me think of the sun a little bit. I'm not painting a picture of the sun. I'm just painting the colors that make me think of the sun and morning. Oh, and it's getting louder now. So I might go into a brighter, louder color. So I'm switching to orange. And I already have some red here. And some of the music, when I hear it, it makes me think of dancing. When I was younger, I did a lot of ballet. And so it makes me think of spinning and twirling. So I'm going to take some of this red and maybe do some swirls and spin and spirals. So you can kind of play with it. So hopefully you can sort of hear how I'm doing this music. how I'm painting the music based on what I'm hearing and what it makes me think of. If when you hear the music, it makes you feel scared, you might want to use dark colors. Or shaky lines because you're scared. If you're listening to it and it makes you feel sad, you might want, or calm, you might want to use blue, like for the sky, because it makes you feel calm. Blue and green for the grass. Maybe if you're feeling sad, you want to use a lot of black and purple. All right, guys, now I'm going to switch to a different type of music altogether, so it sounds not so happy and cheerful, but something really different. So hopefully you can hear that. And then I'm going to switch to watercolors because I want to get more done. Markers are great. Like I said, look how beautiful these colors came out. They came out looking just like watercolors, but it might take a little longer to get it done this way. So I'm going to flip over to this one to finish this off. And you can do this. You can have part of your picture be one type of music and part be another. And I know this music is going to be a little bit kind of dark and scary, a little bit. So I'm going to switch to a different type of brush and different type of sound. And it starts off really soft. You probably can't even hear it. It's starting off really quiet and really calm. It sounds like someone's sneaking around. This is the one that's called The Mountain King, The Hall of the Mountain King. It's a great, great song if you want something that's a little bit kind of creepy and scary and fun. So I'm gonna just kind of do some cooler colors and I'm using my big brush so I get more done. But then I'm gonna put some nice fun shapes on top of these colors afterwards. So I'm listening to the music and I'm starting to hear it sounds like someone's creeping, kind of creeping along. So I'm going to switch maybe to like this black and I'm going to make it look like someone's creeping, doing a little dotted dash line. Someone's creeping around, trying to find something. So I'm going to kind of do that, I think. Oh, it's kind of a little dark and a little bit scary sounding, so I'm going to use some darker colors. And I'm getting a little bit nervous with the sound. Oh, it's getting scary! So I'm making really big dashy marks because it makes me think of running away. Oh my goodness, I'm scared, so I'm going to run away. So I'm doing marks like this. So that's sort of how I am approaching my painting. So hopefully you guys could see the difference between the one that's a little bit scarier and creepier and how I did straight, sharp lines and I tried to show something with sneaking and creeping. I tried to use colors that were a little bit darker, made me feel a little bit more nervous. And then on the other side, I was doing that really happy, soft, bouncy, twirly, bright colors. And you get, like I said, the same thing in the same painting. It's totally fine. So have fun with it. Try some different ones. If you love doing this, it really is so much fun to do. And if you love doing this, please grab another paper and try a different song or try something else. Maybe a favorite song of yours instead of some classical music. You could try some song that you really enjoy that you've heard on the radio, you've heard your parents play for you. That would be fun too. So after you're done with this, we're going to let it dry and then you'll be moving on to part 2.